What's up guys, Dave with Miracle Canine Training. We're gonna be doing a quick question of the day here for you guys all. So this is a good one. How do you deal with your roommate not keeping up with or respecting their training? When you've asked them to stop messing with them and you've addressed the fact that they ruin your dog. For example, when they hype him up when he sees other dogs, messes with him when I have him in a bed stay or is eating. Are there tips on how to combat these things? Okay, so this is an interesting question to answer because there's a couple of variables at play when it comes to any sort of situation where you may be living with somebody else that isn't enforcing your rules or your boundaries or whatever it may be, right? So first off, before I answer the specific question here, I want to talk about a common misconception that people have on just because they have roommates or say parents that are living with them or a sibling or a significant other or whatever, that you can't train the dog, right? You can't still maintain the rules. That because that person is letting the dog jump on them or you know, any number of things, that it's gonna mess with their training of some sorts. Now, this is partially true because inevitably if you're not home and that dog is out, you're not gonna be able to enforce the rules, right? That dog is gonna be inevitably as behaved as the person allows them to be. For example, if I leave my dogs with my parents, right? My parents do not enforce all of the rules. They're pretty good for the most part, but there are definitely some things that slack in certain areas, right? So my dogs are usually 10 to 15% less behaved with them than I would like them to be. But here's the caveat to that. When I am around, it does not matter who is around or what those people are trying to get my dogs to do, because ultimately I have trained them to see those people as nothing but a distraction, right? So jumping, for example, I don't care how excited or amped up those people are getting your dog, right? I don't care how much they're going, come on, puppy, 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 and trying to get them to jump all over them and stuff like that. In the end of the day, you need to let the dog know that no matter what's happening in that situation, that jumping is not appropriate. And I've trained for this, right? I've had people come into my house and get my dogs all amped up before and make gestures and stuff that would look like they wanted them to jump up on them. And my dogs still won't do it because I've trained for that picture. And when they do it, I still will hold them accountable for it. And I still will give a firm correction for doing it in those situations, pushing their training to another point. Does it make it harder for them? Absolutely. But does it make it impossible? Absolutely not. Same goes for general obedience commands or routines or whatever, right? Your dog should have an association with you and a relationship with you that they are respectful of in your presence, right? Again, not in your presence, different story, makes it dramatically harder, but in your presence, that's something that you totally have the ability to control. So diving back into the specific question that you have here, one of the examples you used was egging him on when he's reacting out the window. So if this person is, you know, kind of making jokes of who's there, what's going on, this and that, and the typical things that people will kind of jokingly do with their dogs when they start woofing and making noises and stuff like that. Ultimately, you still can hold your dog to the standard if it's still not an acceptable behavior. I don't care how many times I go, who's there, who's there, who's there? If my dog starts running to the window and freaking out, I'm still gonna give a big correction for that because again, my dog's job is not to listen to this person. My dog's job is to listen to me. Again, when you're not there, a little bit harder, but the second you're there, if you're consistent about giving those consequences, you will see a reduction in those behaviors. Now, another little caveat here that goes into the specific question that was asked here. The specific examples were, again, hyping up when seeing dogs outside. We already talked about that. When you're present, still big correction for that. Absolutely not allowed, no matter what anybody is doing or saying. The other two specific here, messing with him when he's in a bed stay or eating. These ones are a little bit different, right? And they're a little bit different because if your dog is, say, having food aggression issues, right? No matter how much you correct the behavior of guarding the food bowl, if somebody is constantly messing with them, you're never gonna actually reduce the feeling of the dog needing to guard the bowl. You may suppress it a little bit with the correction, but you're still gonna be playing with that kind of ticking time bomb of at some point the dog is going to react. In the case of the bed, this one is gonna be dependent on, is your dog just breaking its bed stay when this person goes over and messes with them, right? Are they, you know, is the dog just kind of too excited and stuff like that, causing them, you know, to hop out of position? Or is the dog guarding the space and guarding the bed, and that person's messing with them and he's getting irritated by it? Those would be two different things. If the dog was guarding the space and getting irritated by it, it would be the same boat as the food. You have to, you know, you could correct the behavior all day long, but in the end of the day, it's not gonna totally stop that feeling that the dog is having. Now, if they're just breaking the bed stay, again, like we talked about before, that the roommate is just a distraction at this point. And this is another thing that I'll do in my case. My mom runs a child daycare service out of her house, and when I take my dogs over there, they have a rule of if the children are petting them, they have to maintain a downstay. So I've trained for it in exactly this fashion. I've done things like put my dogs in a bed stay in the corner, and had, you know, guests or people kind of go over and make noises and kissy faces and stuff like that, and, you know, kind of egg my dogs on to see if they're gonna get up out of that position, and I'll hold them accountable for that and make sure that they maintain position in those cases until that I know they're gonna be reliable under those distractions, right? So the issue here is, are you having just impulse control issues because of the guest, or sorry, because of your roommate in this case, right? Is your dog just having a hard time following the rules, following your command, and, you know, not doing certain behavioral issues because of it? If that's the case, you have to, to answer this question, you have to, accept the fact that your dog is going to be a little bit less behaved when you're not present, and you could either accept that and leave the dog out with this person and have it be fine, or you could set a rule that at home, dog stays crated up in your bedroom until you get home, right? Those are your two kind of restrictions for that. And then when you're present, you just enforce the exact same criteria that you're gonna need, right? The flip side of the equation here is going to be if the dog is having aggression issues towards this person or getting, you know, irritated by them doing things, is you have to make sure you're setting clear, consistent boundaries, right? For not only the dog, but for the person. You have to have that conversation in a serious manner of, this is something that I need you to do for me. It's dependent on my dog's training, and it needs to not be the casual conversation, because I know a lot of us will fall into this trap, especially if we have a roommate or a family member that we're really close with. We'll jokingly say these things all the time, like, yeah, you know, quit messing with him, or, you know, don't bug him while he's on the bed, don't bug him while he's feeding. And the problem is, that's not clear. That is quickly misinterpreted as just a joke or just a suggestion, as opposed to, hey, I need to sit you down here and I need to have a conversation of some of the things you're doing. I've spent a lot of money on my training. I have put a lot of time into my training, and I really need you to not do A, B, and C here to help with that training. I love you, I respect you, but it's really getting in the way of some of the issues that we're having here. So I need you to help out with that. So that's how I would handle that situation. Well, first and foremost, make sure the dog is held to the criteria necessary, and understand that that person is a very high distraction, nothing more, right? So you need to work through that distraction. Your accountability and your levels on the e-collar are gonna need to match that distraction, which means they're gonna be very high probably. And then on the contrary, you need to have the conversation in a serious way that this is something that you can't be doing. Hope that helps. If you have any follow-up questions on it, send us a message.